Who's the scariest fighter in the UFC right now? Well, if you ask their women's division, it's definitely Valentina Shevchenko. Why? I don't know. Maybe because she's literally unbeatable? While she's also competed in the bantamweight division.
125.
Val currently fights in the flyweight category and holds the UFC Women's Flyweight Championship. Valentina is also ranked at number 2 in the women's pound-for-pound rankings in the UFC. The Kyrgyz fighter is the only woman in the world to have successfully defended the UFC Women's Flyweight Championship, and that too a record 7 times. No other woman in the history of the UFC has ever been able to defend a title that many times. Her overall record in the UFC flyweight division is 23 wins and 3 losses. Now, I admit that's a great record, but it doesn't give you the full context of her dominance. Do you know when was the last time she lost a fight? It was 5 years ago, all the way back in September 2017, where she lost to Amanda Nunes, and even that was a close split decision loss.
It's where she was doing her best work, but Shevchenko had her moments, and here's one of them. It had to do with the strikes that Shevchenko had gotten off in that round.
Going to earn the victory.
However, all of her dominance has ended up becoming a source of frustration for her own self. And to no one's surprise, with how unforgiving she's been recently, nobody wants to get in a ring with Shevchenko. Valentina's last fight was last year, back in June. She does have a fight scheduled at UFC 285 in March, but Val feels like it's too long of a gap. She recently spoke out about not being able to fight as much as she'd like to. She shared her frustration at the whole ordeal, mentioning that she has been training every day for her next fight. But for some reason, the UFC can't seem to line up worthy opponents for her. Talking to UFC.com, the Kyrgyz said that she's quite confused about the whole matter. Like, everyone keeps talking about getting a shot at her championship belt, but strangely enough, no one seems to be ready to step up. No one is ready to meet her in the octagon and put their money where their mouth is. Apparently, if you believe her, she's been on the back of the UFC since September, waiting for that phone call. Yet there seems to be no action on that front. The flyweight champion shared that she wanted to have a fight in December, and in general wants to fight a lot more frequently than she does at the moment. I mean, she was criticizing the UFC for not finding opponents for her. I guess more than that, she was taking a jab at her potential rivals. But what exactly makes her so dominant? Well, that would be down to her full-throttle fighting style.
She ate that one hard. I mean, that sounds like someone is slapping the bag with a baseball bat.
Yeah, it's bad.
Oh, head kick.
Now, I wouldn't want to be disrespectful to all the other fighters in her division, but if I tell you honestly, Shevchenko is just miles ahead of any competition. Not just right now, but she might be the most dominant champion in the history of the UFC. She has a very unique fighting style where she's aggressive to the point of being unstoppable. But also has a fortified defense at the same time. She can outplay any opponent on plain strength, but also has the technical ability to match any master technician out there. Her number 1 strength is her striking acumen. Even though she's a second Dan black belt in Taekwondo, her striking is mainly based around Muay Thai, but she also uses techniques from Taekwondo and Western kickboxing. And that combination of different techniques makes it impossible for her opponents to handle. To go perfectly with that, her defensive awareness is out of this world. She always manages to gauge the appropriate distance she needs to maintain in a fight. That allows her to quickly bounce out of an opponent's range whenever they try to attack. And once the attack from the opponent is evaded, she comes in with a counterattack at just the right moment.
Pace at which this round has been fought.
Oh, man. I mean, she is just like a little pit bull when she gets over that head.
Then it's her speed. She's such a live wire in the octagon and is always moving one step faster than her opponents. Her speed gives her almost an unfair advantage over her opponents. She can move quicker, strike quicker, and also make split-second decisions. With all of that, who would want to get in the ring with her?
Murphy say to Lauren, oh, Shea right hand there. Kick, Murphy on the ropes. Could be the beginning of the end here.
Well, Valentina did have a couple of names in mind, as she gave an open challenge to Manon Fiorot and Alexa Grasso. While the Kyrgyz fighter shared her frustration while speaking to UFC.com, she also challenged Manon Fiorot and Alexa Grasso to face her. The 34-year-old fighter thought that the two are now ready to step up and fight against her. And if we look at how well the two have been doing recently, I think they could really put up a fight. Manon Fiorot is a French fighter who's been doing extremely well.
The southpaw position. Look. Oh my goodness. She gets a win in her debut.
Fiorot is currently undefeated in the UFC with a record of 5-0. Like Shevchenko, Fiorot's fighting style is also based primarily on Muay Thai, and she also has taken out 2 former title challengers in a row. But according to Fiorot, she would like to have one more bout before going up against the champion. The other fighter she thought might be ready was Alexa Grasso. Well, Alexa is currently one of the most highly rated fighters in the UFC, and she's currently on a 4-fight winning streak since moving to the 125-pound category. Shevchenko taunted the Mexican, saying if Fiorot can't fight right now, then bring on Alexa. Let's go. And you know what? The Mexican wasn't going to have any of her jibes. Alexa basically told Shevchenko, "You want to fight? Well, you got one." The Mexican has been making some really strong inroads into the UFC lately. She moved up to the 125-pound division in the UFC, and since then, she's beaten other flyweight fighters, including Ji-Yoon Kim, Joanne Wood, Viviane Araújo, and Macy Barber. Her last fight was against Araújo back in October 2022. While her star in the UFC is on an upward trajectory, she has accepted to get into the ring with the Kyrgyz super fighter. Their fight is set to take place at the T-Mobile Arena in the co-main event of UFC 285. The event is scheduled to take place on March 4th in Las Vegas, and honestly, I'm really excited about this fight. Now, I know that Valentina will be the overwhelming favorite, having defended her title 7 times already, but Alexa Grasso is no pushover either. The Mexican fighter is currently ranked number 5 in the UFC flyweight rankings. While most people might rule out her chances given how strong Shevchenko is, she would be looking to pull off an upset from her end. And if you ask me, she does have a lot of tricks in her locker. I also think that Shevchenko might prove to be too much for her on that day, but I think it wouldn't be as straightforward as everyone thinks. Grasso's striking ability, along with her elite grappling technique, she has the potential to end up being a handful for the Kyrgyz fighter. Any sort of progress for her would be in line with her recent rise in the UFC. She moved up to the 125-pound division after spending most of her fighting career in the 115-pound division, and so far, there haven't been any hiccups. It's been a flawless setup to the bigger league. With the fight against Shevchenko, I think she already has shown a lot of heart by accepting to fight the world champion. Realistically, it might prove to be too big of a step up for her, but even if she ends up putting up a fight, it will only enhance her profile as a fighter. Well, that's all, folks. Let's see how their fight goes. We'll see you next time.